Hey guys, it's Andrea with Sucs for You in Houston, Texas, and this video is all about Haworthias. I have so many Haworthias and very few videos about them, so we're going to change that today. This video is going to be discussing general care tips for Haworthias, how I take care of mine, and then I'll take you on a tour of all the different varieties that I have in my collection. Okay, we'll discuss some care tips now, starting with light. Haworthias prefer bright but filtered or indirect light. They don't like to be blasted with full sun. They don't need as much light as like escheverias or cacti. So they're a really great plant for keeping in locations to where you're not getting as much light, saving that space for your succulents that need more light to stay compact and not stretch and whatnot. So I would compare them to, say, Sansevieria as far as what kind of light they prefer. I do keep mine, the majority of mine are going to be on an east-facing porch or out here on the shelf under the pergola. Pergola has a polycarbonate cover on it, so that's going to filter out some UV stuff. And then when it starts getting hot over here on the porch, I will cover them with a shade cloth. That helps keep them from burning. It helps keep them from going heat dormant, so I can keep watering them throughout the year without worrying about the roots rotting, or if a plant goes heat dormant or cold dormant, they're basically not doing anything. And so it's a fine balance between giving them enough water to keep their roots alive and giving them too much water and causing fun stuff like rot to happen. If you're growing them indoors, most of them are going to be just fine in your brightest windowsill. Some might need some supplemental light depending on how much sun you're getting, or whether it's overcast a lot of the year where you live, depending on what latitude you're on. So again, a bright window can mean a lot of different things, but I do cover overwintering and grow lights in the second edition of my book, The Succulent Manual. So definitely give that a read for a lot more details and to help understand like where you are in the world, how that affects the amount of light, the quality of light that you're getting inside and outside your house. As with most succulents, Haworthias like a fast draining soil. They definitely need pots with like very ample drainage holes. I pot mine up in about a mixture between 30 and 40 organic material to drainage materials like pumice, turfus, expanded shale, and that helps keep the roots getting a lot of oxygen down in there, and it also helps, of course, the soil drain faster, and you want that soil to be draining as fast as any other succulent does. Haworthia roots, as far as repotting, you'll want to repot them about maybe every 2 to 3 years, depending on the plant, depending on the pot, and if you have a bunch of plants potted in one pot, because Haworthias tend to reject their old roots, and so you don't want your plant in a pot of soil that has a bunch of old dead roots in there, because that can cause a lot of funky stuff to happen, like introducing pathogens, or just adding that extra organic, unhealthy, unalive material around living roots is not ideal. So have a peek at your Haworthias, check the roots every couple of years or so, give them some fresh soil, and remove any dead stuff, any dead old growth around the roots that you see. So with the right soil and potting situation, I water probably every 7 to 10 days, probably closer to 10 days, like throughout the warmest months of the year. And then as it starts to cool off a little bit, kind of mid 70s or so, it's definitely cooler here, I'll cut back watering to about once a month or so. And then if you do have to bring them indoors, because they are not cold hardy, they will freeze, you'll want to start cutting back on water maybe about 6 to 8 weeks before that cold really starts to set in. Whether or not you're bringing them indoors right away, it's good to start kind of like encouraging a dormancy period, because then you don't have to worry about them not getting enough light. You only water them just enough to keep their roots alive and happy. So even that's maybe only every 6 to 8 weeks, and or less. It just depends. It depends on the plant. It depends on the pot, and yeah, they're pretty forgiving and I've just had so many in my collection, but all their care needs are basically the same as far as how I treat them, and they're just really chill plants, and they're very, very collectible. So let's go check out the rest of my collection. I mean, check those out. Beautiful. There's variegation on this one. There's some variegation on this one. And variegation is just, you know, one of the cool characteristics Haworthias can exhibit. Another fun thing that's happened to me a few times is when a Haworthia flowers. Of course, usually it's just normally flowers. Maybe you'll get lucky and get some seeds. But on occasion, you'll get what's called a little bulbil. And it's actually a little baby that grows on the flower stalk. Isn't that super cute? And for now, I'm just leaving this on here. I don't see any roots coming out, so when I do plan on potting it up, hopefully there'll be some little roots, even if they're just little air roots, and we'll be able to stick them in a little pot and keep it happy long enough to get established. Cute. You might recognize this plant. I've shown it in a few progress videos. This is Haworthia arachnoidea, and it's called that because arachnoids, and it looks like spidery. This was a really fun one to watch progress and fill out this pot. It started out pretty sad, and now it's really almost time to take out this rock and let it finish clumping its way to filling it out, and then it's going to need to be repotted. This is Haworthia truncata, and as you can see, it has tons of flowers on it. Some are finished, and some are still in flower. It's a really different leaf shape, and there's a nickname for it. I believe it's basically referring to the shape being like horse teeth. So this one's really cool. I'll get some better shots of demonstrating, like a lot of times the Haworthias are referred to by a common name as window plant because of the fenestration. They actually have transparent tips to allow light to get down inside the plant, and sometimes more than just the tips are translucent, and it's a very, very awesome feature a lot of Haworthias exhibit. The majority of my Haworthias are up on the porch on a shelf, on an east-facing shelf under a covered porch, but we always have more, it seems. These are on the shelf under our covered pergola, so they're getting good filtered light. Who else is up here? Oh, these pretty things right here. This is little Haworthia. It's Haworthia reticulata, hurlingii. And they're so cute. But I'm trying to get these. They were in a pot, and so I'm trying to get them to fill out this pot. It's really, really cool. And just clumps and clumps. I have so many. I have to get rid of some. If y'all watching this and living in the States and want like a variety pack of Haworthia, maybe we can talk about that. Just let me know in the comments. Let's go see who all's up on the porch. Oh yeah, these guys. Real quick, one thing about the names. Haworthia has been split into 3 different genera. The genus Haworthia itself is referring to the softer leafed varieties. Haworthiopsis is going to be your thicker leafed varieties, and then Tulista is kind of its own thing. They look so much like Haworthias, it's really hard to tell the difference. You can just say Haworthia for everything, and we'll still all know what we're talking about, right? Okay, so first we're going to look at Haworthia cooperi mirror ball. And there's so many varieties and so many species and so many hybrids. This is just one of who knows how many. Haworthia mirror ball. It's a really cool purpley gray big Haworthia. And this one is going to be one of the Haworthias you see that are like shiny, naturally shiny, and it's Haworthia emelyae comptoniana. and it's so cool. That's a really great example of fenestration. You can see how like translucent those leaves are, and this is also another example of fenestration in Haworthia. This is a bayeri hybrid, also very shiny, one of my pricier Haworthias, to be honest, and I have no regrets. And this little one right here, this was a very tiny clump when I first got it. This is a Haworthia cooperi hybrid, and when I first got it, it was like more green, and it's kind of like shown some more purples by now. So over here, this is where I keep the bulk of the Haworthias, and currently keeping them under a shade cloth, unless it's like really overcast. But for the most time, I do try and keep the shade cloth over there when it starts to heat up. And I'm talking about like 90-degree days plus, and I think they really appreciate it. So let's have a look at some of the ones that we had first seen when I showed you in the intro. There was a cymbiformis, a variegata, and this one used to have like a solid white plant on it, and of course it died because it has no chlorophyll, but it was so cool when it lasted. And then this is like a zebra plant, a variegated zebra, and it's like a lime, a really bright green compared to the others, which are darker green. This big clump is Haworthia attenuata, radula, and I love the way it clumps, and it's very colorful. It's got like reds and greens and some nice texture to it as well, and that's the same thing right there. Over here, this big clump is a Haworthia retusa. It's just, I probably need to repot that one soon. In our truncata again. And then this is a cymbiformis as well. Looks a little different than the others, but that's just because it's a different species or a different hybrid. Again, they are highly variable, so identification can be difficult, but everybody's pretty familiar with Haworthia limifolia. This plant right here in particular, this is also Haworthia limifolia, variegated variety. And unfortunately, the others, the non-variegated, always give me seeds almost every time they flower, but this one has never given me seeds yet. This is a Haworthia emelyae, the major hybrid. It's really cool, purple, like crusty almost, I would say. Another one of my big gals. I really love this one. And this is another type of limifolia. The species is sold as Wandera Miami, and I think it has some different names depending on where you are. This is Haworthiopsis coarctata. It's commonly mixed up with Haworthia because they grow like so close together, and sometimes they cross, and that makes it even more difficult. This is our arachnoidea and Haworthia glauca, or Haworthiopsis glauca. I'm going to throw that name out at you because that describes, there's your Haworthiopsis, like thick leaves, right? And then Haworthia limifolia that looks like no others, Ubomboensis. And this to me really looks like Tillandsia, like it looks like air plants, and I probably would have guessed it was an air plant if I just saw one by itself and didn't see what the flower stalks look like. Okay, Astroloba congesta is very, very closely related to Haworthia, as well as Astroloba harryi. They grow very close to in the region where Haworthia and Haworthiopsis originate, and I believe they can also cross with them. And this one, this definitely looks like it should be called Haworthia, but it's Tulista, pumila. And I did read that these actually bleed yellow instead of like clear. Haworthia attenuata. There's a lot of varieties of attenuata. This one is wet paint. Really a lot going on with that plant. And another limifolia. And this one is Haworthia rescendiana. It's so dark. And
Haworthia angustifolia. I'm pretty sure that's what the ID on that. I will update it below if I'm not right. This is Haworthia truncata, Harry Johnson. Yeah, that's a lot of plant. And here we have Haworthiopsis coarctata. And I apologize if I say Haworthia instead of Haworthiopsis. Sometimes I'm old school and everybody knows what we're talking about. So if you want to just call everything Haworthia, that's fine. This is Magnifica, Cuminata. The cultivar is Gray Ghost. A beautiful clumping variety. This is like a recovery pot. I put them, they were looking really sad, so I decided to put them in this beautiful pot. And look, I think it worked. And this is another coarctata species. And that's about it. I know it's a lot, but oh yeah, I always have one more. Probably my oldest Haworthia. I got this one at an IKEA. I started seeds from it, so those are seedlings down in there. There's a weird little chicken foot looking thing on the right. I love this plant. This is Big Mama right here.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope this video helps you understand Haworthias, answer some questions that you might have had about them. Maybe you found some new ones that you want to add to your collection, or found some names for some that you weren't sure of. Identifying Haworthias can be pretty tricky, but there's a lot of good resources out there. Last thing, if you do have any particular specific questions and need some one-on-one help, I'm here for that. You can use the Ask Andrea feature on my website, and I really do love helping you guys figure out your very specific questions and needs, and hearing about like your growing situation, where you are you growing indoors, outside, all that fun stuff. And yeah, this was a fun video to make. And again, you see all the Haworthias I have. I'm kind of, I don't know why I haven't done more videos on them, but I do think maybe part of that just has to do because they're pretty easy, and they do require a little bit of special care, but not much. And depending on your budget, and you can spend a pretty penny on some of these, and feel good about doing it too, because they do so well. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching, and stay cool.